Hey everybody, and welcome to a new episode of TLDR here on the Heart of Geek YouTube channel. This week I'm talking about my favorite game ever made. It's a game that came out on the Super Nintendo back in the day, and if you are watching this video, you've already seen what it's about because it's in the name of the video. It's Chrono Trigger. I don't know if you've played the game Chrono Trigger. I suggest if you have not played it, you go play it and then come back to this video after, because I'm going to spoil the crap out of it because I just want to gush about how great this game is, and I have to spoil a bunch of stuff in this game in order to do it. So I'm going to go through a multi-point thing about what I love about this game, starting with number one. That would be the player characters that you get to play as. Because one, you start with Chrono, who is a hero who at the beginning of the story is not a hero, he's just a dude. And then extraordinary things happen and he steps up and he becomes a hero, and through the course of the story, things happen to him that I'm going to bring up later, but quite frankly, Chrono is cool. Luca, she's a scientist and she just loves to fiddle with stuff and figure things out, and she's like Chrono's best bud and is always there to help him out. Then there's Marley. You can call her Marl, you can call her Marley. I don't know what the pronunciation is, but I've called her Marley since I was a kid, so that's what I'm going to call her now. She is a princess who's tired of being a princess and she wants to be something more, and through the course of the story she becomes that. There's Robo, a robot who is programmed to be a certain way and doesn't want to be that way and becomes something else. Like, there's a lot that's in the whole time travel thing that's just like very good character development for these people. And I mean, there's Ayla, who's the leader of a band of cavemen, and she's trying to save her people from the reptars, and the whole story revolves around that. And then there's Frog, who was transformed by Magus into a frog. His name's Glenn, and he gets transformed into a frog, and then he's grappling with the fact that he looks like a frog now, and can he be a hero and look like a frog? Turns out, yeah, if you just get over yourself, you're gonna be fine. And then there's secret character, you can actually do it, the Magus himself, which could have been a one-note villain, but seriously, like, as you get to play as him and you get to explore his backstory, you figure out that it's not all black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray there, and yeah, the Magus was a dick, but the reason why he was doing the things he was doing was for a good purpose, and it doesn't like, oh yeah, anything you did was just fine. No, but it's like, hey, we understand. So, now that I've got all of the main characters out of the way, they're just great. Two, I'm going to talk about the fact that the character designs in this game were done by Akira Toriyama, the artist for Dragon Ball, which I think is, one, just crazy, and two, awesome, because the sprite work in this game basically takes his character designs and just like puts them in the game. For like, you wouldn't think that would be able to happen, because yeah, like, he did a lot of like Dragon Quest and all that stuff, but that's like, after a while it's like, yes, here's the page and you can just put it in the game. But back when there were like sprites and stuff, like, the chances of your characters looking exactly the way they were on paper is probably pretty low, but they did a really good job in this game of doing that. And I think that gives it like a level of just shine and polish that is just great. Now, past that, I will say that this game has some of the best dialogue in an RPG or any game period, because there's reason to talk to every single character in this game. Yeah, some of them don't have a lot to say, but some of them will say one sentence and it clues you into their entire backstory, or it clues you into a side quest that leads to something awesome. And like, this game does not hold your hand. That's my next point after the dialogue thing. It doesn't hold your hand. It's not like games now where you talk to a person and it's like, oh, you have a quest, let me put a marker on your map and then you can go do that. No, it's you talk to a guy and he's like, hey, I heard about this thing. And then you're like, oh, I might want to write that down because I don't want to forget about that. And then you find something that's related to that and you're like, oh, didn't that guy say something about this? And then it leads to a whole bunch of stuff and then you're like, oh, wait, that's kind of cool. So yeah, dialogue leading to side quest choices and being able to do stuff. Then, on top of that, I will say this. There is no grind in this game unless you want there to be a grind. Because I have played this game numerous times through from beginning to end, done New Game Plus, which I'll talk about later, and seen all the endings multiple times. There's no grind to this unless you want there to be. Because nothing in this game is insurmountable with strategy and figuring stuff out. Like, and the battle system in this game is super cool because in a lot of RPGs, it's like you're walking and random encounter, now you're in a fight. And while that's kind of neat, Chrono Trigger like dumps that out and just goes, hey, you know what? We're going to put everything that you can fight on the screen. And you can choose whether or not you want to fight them. Of course, outside of bosses, because bosses are pushing the story forward. But if you don't want to fight, you can just run past enemies. They'll have like a walking pattern and stuff like that, and you can figure it out and then get around them to go past them and into something else, which I think is amazing. I wish more games would do that. It's fantastic because then you can pick and choose your own battles and you can fight everyone, or you can fight just that guy and leave this guy alone and go over there and do this thing. And there's, yeah, like the battles in this game are just great. And that, just talking about the battle system, that leads me to another thing that I love about this game, and that is the double tech and triple tech system. Because this game rewards you for having certain people in your party that can like learn from each other and figure out how to do techniques with each other that change the game entirely. Because it has an active time battle bar just like Final Fantasy, but when a single character's bar fills up, they can fight. Or if you have a double tech or a triple tech with multiple people, you can wait until all of their bars fill up and then do a special attack, which not only looks cool, but sometimes does specific like status effects, or heals you for a lot more than if one person did it, or like just does a massive amount of damage because 3 people are attacking at the same time. They're all cool. It makes sense for all of them to be in the game, and they're just fun to watch. So yeah, the battles in this game are just great. Now, on top of that, there's just wonderful things. Like, I talk about the dialogue, but every single villain in this game is interesting, and they tell the story in a way that makes you go, oh, what happened to that person to make them this way? Because everything is in shades of gray. Like, and then there are some people that it's like, oh no, they're like just jerky evil bad guy. And then there's some guys that seem like joke characters that end up being like crazy villains later in the story, and it's just like fantastic. Like Dalton is one of my favorite characters in a video game ever, just because he seems like the kind of guy who's like, I'm gonna be the bad guy, and then everything he does just falls apart because he's not very good at being a bad guy. And you would think after a while that you would just give up on being a bad guy if you're terrible at it, but Dalton keeps trying, and he ends up doing some things that actually help the group because he's terrible at being a villain. And like, and now I have to say, my favorite thing about this entire game is how it handles time travel, because there are multiple eras throughout the entire game, and layered into all of that is there's one person basically from each era that becomes a part of your party basically. And once you have enough people to where when you're time traveling, it like you can only have a certain amount of people in your party at the same time, because if you have more than that, you'll end up at the end of time, and you'll have to leave somebody behind at the end of time in order to have enough people in your ship to go places and not mess up the time stream in some weird timey-wimey stuff. Like, that is pretty great. It sets that precedent like pretty early on, and then that's like, oh, that's why you can only have like so many people in your party at once, because if you have more than that, when you time travel, it's going to make everything wonky. And I think that's fantastic. I think the fact that you can go to an earlier timeline and do something and then have that payoff happen in another era is fantastic. Like, there's stuff that you do, oh hey, one of my favorite entire scenes in the entire game is when you go back in time and you leave Robo to plant a forest in the past, and he just does it for like 100 years, or maybe even more than that. It was probably like 600 years, and then you get back and it's like present day, and you go to where he was, and there's a beautiful lush forest, and you pick up Robo and go, hey buddy, you ready to go? And he's just been doing this for hundreds of years and just maintaining it and making it beautiful. But since he's a robot, he could just do that. It's not like he's gonna die while upkeeping this forest. And just that kind of thinking is just strewn about this entire game. And now that I've just started thinking about one of my favorite scenes in the game, that makes me think about my all-time favorite scene in the game, because it sets up everything about the rest of the game, and that is the trial at the beginning. Because when you start the game, you're Chrono, and you're like, oh, I need to go to the Millennial Fair, and your mom gives you some money, and you go, and you're gonna have fun. Then you meet a princess. You don't know she's a princess at the time, you just know she's a lady. And you go see your friend Luca's fancy invention at the fair, which is basically a teleport pad that, like, there's one pad here and one pad here, and if you go into this one and they turn it on, you'll end up at the other one. It's pretty quick teleportation, and it's freaking fantastic. And then when your friend Marley gets in the machine, because she has this necklace, it interacts with the necklace, goes all weird, and then sends her back to the past. And like leaves the necklace, because it like falls off when she goes. So then it's time to be a hero. Like, it doesn't just do it, you have to make the choice to go grab her necklace and go in the portal. And then when you do, you're in the past, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? And then all of that whole thing, you find Marley and you get her back to the present, and then the people in the present think you kidnapped her because she left. She ran away. So they think you kidnapped her, and there's a trial that basically is like, hey, you're the bad guy, you kidnapped her, and you get railroaded at the trial. But what I love about it is the fact that, one, no matter what you do, you're still going to end up in jail. But depending on what you did at the Millennial Fair before you go back in time, you'll have character witnesses that will show up and help you in the trial and go like, no, he saved my cat. Or like if you eat a guy's lunch that's sitting on a table, he comes in and he's like, that guy ate my lunch. And it's just like, it's a really distinctive and interesting way to say, hey, the choices you make in this game matter. And just doing it in that way, like, not only puts it in your head, hey man, there's going to be things that I do in this game that are going to have long-lasting consequences throughout time, maybe. And you're like, oh, should I do that? Because what happens if I do that? Will it have lasting consequences down the line? Maybe. But that I think is really cool. And the last thing I'm going to say about this game is that, like, I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and I've had campaigns where you introduce the big bad evil guy and it doesn't go that well. Like, nobody knows if that guy's going to be the big bad evil guy, or he just doesn't seem as big of a threat as he should. But Chrono Trigger is how you do it, because early on in the game you end up in the future and the world is destroyed, and there's a lot of people who don't have food. They're just living day by day and hoping that they get through to the next one. People are dying, that kind of stuff. And then you end up in one of the domes that has video footage of what happened. And it's straight up, Lavos rises out of the ground and just destroys everything. And like, it's like, oh hey, yeah, you're seeing what happened in the past, but you have a time machine so you can go further into the past and stop this thing from ever happening. Like, that's like one of the best setups for a villain I have ever seen in any medium, not just video games, because it sets the stakes right away, because everything that Lavos did already happened, but you have a time machine and you can go back and stop it from ever happening. And like, you see the consequences of what he's doing as it unfolds on the screen, so it makes you go, oh crap, I need to go stop this. And that being in a video game is fantastic. Like, there are so many things in this game that I wish other games would crib off of it, that it's just fantastic. And then the final thing, I think I said that talking about Lavos was going to be the final thing, but I just thought about this. New Game Plus. New Game Plus is one of those things that happened in Chrono Trigger, and then every other game company saw it and went, oh man, this is a thing that we need in our game, because it keeps people playing the game for longer. But Chrono Trigger did it so well because it's tied into the story. Because, quite frankly, New Game Plus is another time travel mechanic, because it says, hey, you beat the game, now let's take all of your stuff and do the game over again. And it's like, oh hey, you know how you went and did all this stuff and then you were able to get super powerful and then eventually defeat Lavos? How about at the beginning of the game, when you go to the teleporter there's a new teleport thingy, and you can go straight to the fight with Lavos and kick the crap out of him right at the beginning of the game, because you have all of the stuff from the previous game. You can do that if you want. And I think that's fantastic. Like the fact that there is stuff that you can do in this game that you can't do until you've beaten it once, but also the fact that you have all of the stuff that you had previously, so you don't have to like grind it out to get all that stuff again. It's genius, because you can get one ending and go, oh, that was great. Now I need to see what's going on if I can do this other stuff. And then you go back and you do that ending, and you just keep going through it. And then eventually you're like me, who has seen every single ending multiple times, thinks they're all fantastic in their own way, and just has his mind blown by just how in-depth each like decision process for like how each individual ending deals with certain things in the whole thing is fantastic. I could seriously talk about Chrono Trigger for the next 2 years, and it would make this entire video entirely ridiculous, and I would break down every reason that I love every single scene and all of that stuff, but you don't want to see that. Or maybe you do. Throw it in the comments if you do. While you're down there, hey, give me a comment about your favorite game ever. Maybe I'll do a TLDR on that one, because it might be one of my favorites too. Or, hey, how about this? You could also throw down there the worst game you've ever played. Maybe I'll do a review on that for my Thanks I Hate This series. And you know what? While you're down there, hit this little red button called subscribe. If it's gray, that's cool. That means you're already subscribed. Hit that bell icon for notifications, because if you notice, this is Wednesday. I normally upload on Tuesdays, but I completely forgot because it was my wife's birthday. But hey, you know what? I want to see you guys here on the Heart of Geek for everything I ever do. So yeah, hit that. Throw some stuff down in the comments. Go to our Heart of Geek website. It's called theheartofgeek.com, where we have stuff like this, all of our podcasts that we've been doing, which are fun. I think we have a link to our Twitch, which is Heart of Geek, and I'm doing some Twitch streams. It's going to be a few weeks until the next one comes out for Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm moving from nights to days, so we'll be able to be on a more consistent schedule. And I hope to see you there. I hope to keep seeing you here, but until then, I hope you have a great day, a great week, a great month, and a great year. Bye-bye.